how perfect, all of my friends were married by like 28, like all of them. I didn't have a single friend left by the time I had turned 28. And I was just like, wow, like, what am I doing wrong? And so even though I knew that it probably wasn't the best situation, I was so happy at the point that my ex-husband proposed to me that I was like, yes, let's do this. It looks like Yang has fallen off again. So, oh, there she
No,
is. You went
yeah.
away for a second, but you're back.
Yeah, quick second.
So, and that's more or less what it came down to was I was so excited that somebody finally wanted me to be their wife that I did everything in my power to make my relationship work. And in doing that, I forgot to take care of me. I lost myself somewhere in the submission and somewhere in the answering to and the cleaning the house and the cooking and the being everything that he needed me to be. Because he was an entrepreneur. So, I spent a lot of time helping him with his businesses and things like that and forgot to chase my own dreams. I launched a newspaper that collapsed because of the town that we were in. And it absolutely broke my heart. And I had nowhere to turn, no friends to call or no one to talk to about it because I was so caught up in being the best wife that I could be that I forgot that it's okay to still be me. And I think that's, as women, that's what a lot of us do. Is that how things kind of went for you, Sheena, or was it different for you? Like, did you know from the beginning it wouldn't work, or?
Honestly, I did. Because I got married for the wrong reasons. I didn't get married because
What reasons did you get married for?
Because I was comfortable being uncomfortable, and it just seems like I didn't want to be alone. So when he asked, I was like, sure, why not? Because, I needed a friend more than I was scared to be by myself. I had went through a lot of trauma, especially after my son's father passed away. I kind of was lost. I wasn't in my right headspace, I guess, dealing with the grief. So when he came in, like, it was like, okay, I had someone to lean on or a friend or somebody that sees me, but he wasn't really good for me. So it wasn't like I was like madly in love and we're best of friends. So, I knew my heart wasn't in it, and I was just getting married because it was something to do. So I wasn't really, positive that it was going to last. So I didn't have, I guess, faith in it. So when it ended, I accepted it. I wasn't in denial about it at all, because I already, figured it was coming. I wasn't happy. And then by the time I did get the divorce, I was just fed up with being unhappy. And I was getting back to myself. I was like, why am I putting myself through this? And I was ready to leave. But I had to be ready to leave. I had to get out of that space. And I knew I had to deal with my grief from losing my son's father so I can get out of the situation I put myself in. And stop blaming myself for putting myself into the situation and knew that it wasn't right for me so I can get out of it. So I knew it wasn't right for me in it. And then I got upset with myself for getting myself into it. So then I just had to accept all of that and, start the process to let it go and move on because it wasn't for me.
See, I really love the fact that you as a person were never in denial. I was in complete denial. My ex-husband told me he didn't want to be with me like 6 months before we separated. And I was like, no, don't do this. I'll be better. I'll make more money. I'll make you more happy. And I literally wore myself out trying to make things work. And at the point that it didn't, our final day, the final time that he said it, at that point, I was so tired and so empty inside that he was like, hey, I think I need to leave. I think we need to separate. And I just said, okay. Because
When
at
you
that
get
point, what
tired
else
of
could you
that
do?
battle or tired of fighting, that's when it's time to go. I think that's when most people just
Well,
start
that's when I
leaving.
knew that it was over. At the point that
Yeah,
I gave up, I knew that it was done because he had, in my opinion, he had given up a long time before that. And I don't even blame him. He has a lot of past trauma that he dealt with that made him feel like he couldn't completely open up to me. And that's fine. And it also, we were together in a really rough time in life. 2020 was crazy.
cool.
Like, if anyone ever asked me if listen, that's why they don't let me have children, because I would tell them, like, 2020 was the apocalypse. Like, the whole world changed. It
It
was some kind of
did.
weird mass
It
alien
really
takeover.
did.
It did, because listen, when COVID hit, like, I was an essential worker, so I didn't get to
Me
take any
too.
time off.
Me
But he was an
neither.
entrepreneur, and so he was out there hustling. He was making, decent money. He was selling different kinds of things. He was, that's just who he is. He was making good money. But during that time, I couldn't go see my family. My dad was battling cancer, so I couldn't go see him. I couldn't get him sick. My sister was pregnant. I couldn't go see her because I couldn't get her sick. Then she had the baby and I couldn't get the newborn sick. So I had nobody to talk to, but him, and he was over it. So 2020 was just one of those years where it was like,
I
dang,
think that
man,
put
what do
the
you
pressure
do?
on a lot of people. And I think if we go back
Yeah,
and
they
look
said
at
a
the
lot of divorces
stats,
happened.
there's a lot of divorces probably ended in 2020 because, or we should look at the stats the statistics for 2021, because the divorce rates probably in 2021 is probably high as hell because everybody
Right?
probably was tested during 2020. I know I sure was, and I was like, man,
Right.
I'm over this. Like, I'm over it. It's an eye opener. 2020 was an eye opener.
Well, it was because it made you realize, like, who, what, when, why, and where, as far as who you could trust, who you could be around, and
Right.
things like that. And what's funny is I never got COVID back then.
It's just like when
I was an
everybody was
essential
stuck in a
worker.
house and they
I
really
never
see
got
who they
sick.
were. Yeah, you see who you were married to. You
Right.
really see the person being stuck in the house with them for so long. You really saw who that real person. They probably showed
Right.
the
You're
true
not both
colors.
going separate ways, going to work all day and all that, and then meeting at home for
Hmm.
dinner or nothing like that. Yeah, COVID was rough on people, man.
Right. A lot of people showed their true colors, and some people just couldn't handle it.
Yeah, 2020 was rough on me. That was the worst year to this day. That was probably the worst year of my life. But it is what it is. There was so much going on and so much that you couldn't control,
Right.
that everyone's lives just kind of fell apart or fell back together, depending on how you look at it. I don't really feel like my life fell apart then. I feel like I learned a lot of lessons.
I agree.
Well, I mean, after my final separation, and we called it quits, and he actually left. And he did. He took all of his stuff and took off. So at the point that he did that, I had no choice but to move on. But I was like in a city I didn't know by myself. I had moved up there to be closer to his family. So when he left, I couldn't just call his family and be like, hey, I'm lonely. Come hang out with me.
That was the same. Mine, I moved away
And
from
it's
my
funny because I was
family.
in your city, Sheena.
Yeah, we were staying in the same city. I moved there because that's where he wanted to go, like to give him an opportunity to be happy, because that's what he kept saying. He's not happy. I was like, okay, so we're gonna do what makes you happy and get there, and he's still not happy, and I'm still miserable. So And then like it was trying to leave and we're separating, but I'm in this city and I don't know nobody. Like, so yeah, I completely
Yeah, it was
understand.
really strange after we learned. Like, me and Sheena lived like less than 5 minutes from each other for like a year and
And
never
didn't
met each
even
other,
know.
never knew each other. It wasn't until after I moved out to Columbia, South Carolina, and was speaking with her brother that me and her even met each other, learned about each other, and realized we lived less than 5 minutes apart. The entire time we were both fighting. We could have been besties then.
Right.
You know what I
We
mean?
fought
But we were
over
both going
something.
through the
We had a
craziness.
friendship.
Right. Gosh. Anyways,
Well, we're
so
gonna
moving
make up
on from
for it.
that, I do wanna huh?
I said we're gonna make up for it.
We're gonna have to now. I mean, because I'm gonna tell everybody that I met you in 2020 and that you gave me COVID, and that's how I met you. That's what I'm gonna start telling people. I met this weird lady at a gas station. She gave me COVID. um.
That's funny.
Oh, that just made me tear up. That's hilarious.
Oh,
I do think that should be our future lie. I mean,
yeah.
besides the fact that we just put it on a podcast, it's a
It could
lie.
be true though. It could be true though, because nobody knows how
Right.
you
It
get
could
COVID.
be.
Could be.
Right. Right. Well, that's a whole nother episode in its own. Um, so the next thing I kind of want to touch on is the trauma after. And the reason I think that this is important is there's going to be people that watch this podcast that have no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
And I can't speak for everybody, but I can tell you a lot from my standpoint. And I'm a very strong, emotionally strong individual. But the moment that I separated from my ex-husband, even though I felt a little bit of relief because I no longer had to argue with him, and I no longer had to deal with the things that I dealt with throughout our marriage, I was lonely and I was scared, and I was also the first person in my family that was ever going to get a divorce. My parents were still married, and my older sister was still married, and my little sister was engaged. And so I felt like it was wrong. I felt like I should feel shame. I felt like no one understood what was going on. And no matter how hard I tried to explain it to other people, I felt like nobody got how empty I felt inside for no reason. And that's the tears. But that's the reality
Okay.
of it, and that's how bad it hits
Sorry.
home. Because, and I'm all right, guys, but that was a really rough time in my life, and I'm not overreacting or overstimulating the emotions at all. I put everything I had into my marriage, and so when it ended, I was devastated. And I again was in a town I didn't know. So like the ending of my marriage also ended like my time in that town, the job that I had. Ending my marriage pushed me to change my life 150%. But let me tell you, it doesn't stay. It hurts really bad at first. Really,
It
really
does.
bad.
It does.
See? Yeah. And then
It does
as
because
each
you
day
think
goes
you
on,
failed, and even though it could be a blessing
right.
in disguise, you still feel like a failure for that moment.
Mm-hmm. And you can't change that because if you look at the people around you, and this is no, I'm not taking any shots at any religion or anything like that, but a lot of Christians will tell you, they don't believe in divorce. And I didn't believe in divorce. I never got married with the intentions of getting divorced. I didn't believe in divorce. I got married with the intentions of being loyal to that person for the rest of my life. And I did that the entire time I was married with no hesitation. And then at the point that everything ended and I had to move on with life, I wasn't really sure how I felt about that. I didn't want to get to know somebody else. I didn't want to